Welcome to Ladies Talkin Leafs. I'm Chris.
And I'm Sil.
And happy Canada Day to all of our Canadian listeners, and happy 4th of July to our American audience, too. Yay, hope you all have had a great holiday. And but it's also a busy time still for the NHL with the draft and NHL free agency. A lot of Leaf news to cover with the contract signings for John Tavares and Matthew Knies, and of course, the end of an era with Mitch Marner signing with Vegas. So we'll get into that. First, though, we're going to start off the show with a quick review of a couple of the players that the Leafs picked in the 2025 NHL entry draft, who have some interesting backgrounds.
Yeah, so the Leafs' first pick in the second round was Tinnis Luke Koblar, a center who was born in Slovenia, and his mother and father were both Winter Olympians. His father was an alpine skier, and his mom was a biathlete, and they both represented Slovenia. So that's he comes from a pretty great athletic background. So he seemed pretty excited to be drafted by the Leafs, which is nice to see. So yeah.
I really liked all of it.
I couldn't place his accent at first, and now I know why. He's from Slovenia.
Yeah. And I guess they moved to Norway when he was, younger in his childhood. And because his dad got a job with the Norwegian
ski team.
Yeah. So that's how he's got mostly a Norwegian background, but now he's hoping to play for a Swedish team in the Swedish league. So, but yeah, so it's, it was interesting. All the like the draft picks. I was actually surprised how many draft picks we had, because I know we don't have any first rounders, but then I thought I didn't think about the later rounds, but we had quite a few. And another interesting new Leaf is William Bell. He's a right winger born in Minnesota, but lived in southern China until 2015. His dad is an engineer from the US, and he met his wife, who is from China, on a business trip. So William learned to skate on the rooftop rink of a shopping mall in China, which I thought was quite interesting. And then the family returned to the US in 2015, and that's where William's hockey career basically started to get going when he made the U.S. development program. So, yeah.
I heard that they had to travel several hours to Beijing for him to even play hockey in the first place in China, because it was obviously not available everywhere. One of the things that I found pretty exciting about him was just listening to him talk about, playing physical and all of that. He seemed really passionate about that. And he basically patterns his game after guys like Tom Wilson, which I thought, that's definitely something we need on the Leafs, some of that jam.
Yeah.
So that was good.
I wouldn't mind seeing a Tom Wilson type player on our team. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, those are a couple of the picks that stood out for us. Another one is, what was his name? Hopkins. What was his first name?
Yeah, I'm just getting there. I'm going through my.
It's sad that I don't remember, because he's from my neck of the woods, not far from
Tyler Hopkins.
Tyler Hopkins, yes. So he's from Campbellville, Ontario, which is very, very near to what's actually part of Milton, which is where I'm from. So that was pretty exciting, because he probably played in some of the same leagues as my sons did. So it's always nice to have a local kid make the big club. So
yeah, and on Twitter or X, Alex Hobson reported too that he's a center with great defensive instincts. He has good size, and he has room to grow for the offensive part of it. And then he said it's basically a new Fraser Minton.
Oh, great. So since we sent one of those out the door, it's good to get a replacement. So definitely happy to hear that. And anyway, so the other good thing about the people that they picked, which was just something that we noticed, is they were all well above 6 feet. The smallest guy that they picked is 6'1", and other than that, they're all like 6'3", 6'4". So big guys. And
I think that. Yeah, that has a lot to do with, I guess, the way NHL teams are going anyways, like a lot of NHL teams. And you look at Florida, obviously, everything is about bigger and stronger and faster, basically, right? Because all of these players, too, they can skate really well from what was reported. So, yeah.
And interestingly, the two guys we highlighted are the only non-Ontarian players. So anyways, I guess, they had the slightly, more different type of story, is how they ended up in the game.
The reason why I picked Koblar was because he was he was our first pick in the whole draft. So it was 64th overall. And then William Bell was the story. I thought that was interesting. And the thing that got me was the skating on the rooftop of a shopping mall. I'm like, great, they said, right.
But anyway, 4 out of 6 from Ontario, local kids. That's always a good thing. So,
yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, anyway, so Brad Treliving has been very busy with reshaping the current roster, and we're going to go into all the details of that with our Ladies Talkin Leafs insider, Mike Augello. So without any further ado, let's talk Leafs.
Okay, there's a lot to get into with the signings of John Tavares, Matthew Knies, and of course the end of an era with Mitch Marner being traded to the Vegas Golden Knights in a sign and trade deal. And to talk about all this, we welcome to the show our Ladies Talkin Leafs insider, Mike Augello.
Mike covers the Leafs and the NHL as a reporter and is a member of the Professional Hockey Writers Association. Mike is the co-managing editor of hockeyhotstove.com, a new website that offers all types of hockey-related content for passionate NHL fans. And Mike also covers the Buffalo Sabres for the Hockey News. Thanks as always for coming on the show, Mike. Yes, lots to get into with you right now.
That's for sure.
Always a pleasure.
Okay, so we'll get to Mitch Marner in a minute. You probably thought we were going to start with him, but no, we're going to go back because we're first going to want to get your thoughts on the deals for John Tavares signing the 4-year contract at $4.38 million AAV, and then Matthew Knies, who also signed a 6-year deal at $7.75 million AAV. So most people are saying it's a good job done by Brad Treliving. What do you think of those deals?
I think they were phenomenal signings in terms of the term, and in terms of, in the case of Knies, 6 years. And if you saw the contracts that were signed on July 1st, everybody is giving term out to spread the AAV to keep the number low, even with the cap going up. Cap room is king, and if you can sign somebody to a longer term deal and then they retire, and I think with most of them it just drops off, or you find a creative way of putting the player on LTIR. That's the way to go. And Treliving, I think he stuck to his guns. And if you look at the deal with Tavares specifically, I believe it was a $4.5 million deal, which was the same as Matt Duchene, but because they deferred $2 million to, I think, like 2033 or something like that, they lowered the AAV to 4.38, which is what they did with Jake McCabe. And in the new collective bargaining agreement, that won't be allowed, but right now it is. So they lowered the AAV. And I'm sorry, he scored 38 goals last year. There was no second line center of his caliber in this market after Duchene got signed. You would have had to trade significant assets, which I don't think they have really, to get a second line center. So to me, it was an absolute prerequisite that they get him signed. And I think Treliving did a great job on that one. As for Knies, it was like, obviously, everybody would want an 8-year deal because he's 22 years old. You'd want to get him till 30, but I understand why they, probably wanted a bridge deal, and they compromised in the middle on a 6-year deal. The AAV at 7.75. If you look at some of the other contracts again, like JJ Peterka, that deal was 7.7 for 5 years. So the Leafs got Knies for just slightly more for an extra year. So I think Treliving on those two deals hit it out of the park.
Yeah. And what did you think of both of their comments? They're both, I listened to Knies today. He was on the TSN broadcast of the free agency broadcast, and they were both more about the team, and like they weren't so much like about just saying like anything about the fans. It was all about the team in their comments. I just like to see that as opposed to what others.
Unlike somebody else that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. That's about the team. Oh, no, it's about me.
Yes.
It's always about me.
Great lead there to the next one.
Okay, well, since we've opened that can of worms, we may as well go there. So on to Mitch Marner then, who signed an 8-year deal with Vegas at a cap hit of $12 million per season. It's a sign and trade deal made by GM Brad Treliving. He managed to get Nicholas Roy in return, who a lot of people are saying is going to be a good fit, and that this was a win for the Leafs. Obviously, they managed to get something, which is great. So, what are your thoughts on how this whole saga has played out, and what do you think of what the Leafs got in return?
Well, I mean, the saga in total, I mean, the funny thing was when Elliot Friedman reported on draft night on the first round that there was talk about a sign and trade with Nicolas Roy coming back. And I'm sure if it's Don Cherry, he'd say Nick Roy. But I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense because Nicolas Roy is the type of player that fits with Berube. He's a big right shot center, which is not unimportant because they were having William Nylander taking faceoffs on the right side in the defensive zone sometimes. And that doesn't work. Roy is a good faceoff guy. He's a penalty killer. He scored 15 goals last year. He's a big body third line center. So, I mean, that's a really good fit, and he's under control for 2 more years, $3 million. So I like the acquisition. The thing that was hilarious was the report that came out on Sunday from Elliot on 32 Thoughts about the tampering issue. And I commented on it, and somebody said, well, former Hockey Buzz colleague, Travis Yost, I think he still works for TSN. And he says, this smacks of extortion. And, because if you're threatening tampering, then you're basically forcing Vegas, and this is what Friedman said, well, you're forcing Vegas to give up something so to make the tampering allegations go away. And I said, the last time I looked, there is nothing against extortion in the collective bargaining agreement. There is something against tampering. So, if they did tamper, and I have a feeling that they did.
Well, considering that they had like a whole store full of Marner's jerseys ready to go with number 93, gee, I wonder.
Yeah, I mean, right. There was a picture out there of them with having like Marner jerseys in a Vegas store, but I think that was a sort of an AI fake. But but today they have not. And
maybe not.
Yeah, of course. He's wearing 93, so it's he couldn't wear 93 in Toronto because if maybe
that was the problem, Mike.
Yeah. He didn't get
no.
Obviously, that's obviously the reason why things didn't work out. He could not wear the 93.
Never mind, though. You got to listen to this, though. I saw on social media somebody said that they should have a retirement of jersey number 16 for Darcy Tucker, and make sure that Vegas Golden Knights are there for that, like are at Scotiabank Arena playing that night for the retirement to honor Darcy Tucker, number 16.
It'll be retired for Darcy Tucker and Eddie Olczyk. So
yes, exactly.
and in Leaf history, Ace Bailey did allow Ron Ellis to wear number 6 because it was retired. So there was something in history, but they wouldn't allow. And well, I'm going off the deep end here. But my point is that if you're extorting the Vegas Golden Knights, so much the better. I mean, if they tampered and they wanted, and we know that there was interest because, and I really think that this leak. And it was Chris Johnston who was reporting it, and Chris Johnston is a great reporter. He reported that Marner would have waived the no move clause to go to Vegas in a 3-way deal with Rantanen coming to Toronto, but that the Carolina portion of the 3-way deal couldn't be met. So to me, that smacked of a leak from the Marner camp. Like, he was willing to go, but it didn't work out. No, baloney. I don't believe, I'm not saying Chris's reporting is inaccurate. I don't believe for a minute that Mitch Marner was going to waive his no move clause.
Now that is like a saving face kind of move.
Bingo.
Yeah, leak for sure, to make them not look as bad. So to me, now that this has all fallen out the way it has, I really feel like he decided this last summer, because I really feel like he's been different all year long. He's been different with the media. He hasn't been as petulant as usual. I kind of feel like he already in his mind is like, I just got to get through this year and I'm out of here.
The weight was
that's
off.
kind of how I feel like it was.
The weight was off his shoulders because he knew he was gone. So I mean, whatever the motivations here was, I mean, I just look at it as a situation where, the Leafs were stuck in a corner because of the contractual situation, and we've discussed it on the show before. The no move clause dropped on July 1st, 2023. He should have been traded, and the only reason that he wasn't traded was because Kyle Dubas, and I think he was going to trade one of the core four. It was either Nylander or Marner, but he got fired before he had a chance to do it. And then Treliving comes in 5 weeks before the no move clause comes in. And I think Brendan Shanahan basically said, no, don't break up the core four. So, they fed into this situation, and then they got painted into a corner. So getting Nicolas Roy for a guy who was walking out the door is, I think, a good move for the Leafs. And, like I said, when I saw the tweet regarding Marner, I just said, presented without comment, because if I did make a comment, it would make me look like a jerk.
But, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's not that I love the guy. I refuse to buy a jersey now. I have to say, I'm not buying any jersey that I have is just going to be like Wendell Clark or Doug Gilmour, one of the two, whichever one. If I get another jersey, because every time I get one, the player ends up getting traded, right? Or getting
when I bought jerseys, and it has not been in a long time. Wendell Clark is the only player's jersey that I bought. All the others have been like blank jerseys, just like, a Leafs jersey, but no name on the back, no number on the back, because it's it's honoring the team and not a particular player.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I'm just concerned, where are we going to replace these 102 points or 90 to 100 points? And I know it's not going to be one player.
No.
But
I think they said that Raw and Maselli, another new ad, combined almost meet that.
Yeah,
in their production.
I don't know.
Okay.
I honestly don't think it's going to happen this year. I think that we've talked about it before too. They're going to take a step back. They're not replacing his 100 points this year. It's not going to happen.
But I mean, and I've heard a couple people use this phrase, and I think it's accurate. I think they're going to replace him in the aggregate. Like, they always use that total.
That's kind of what I was.
That phrase in Moneyball.
Yeah.
Like that was, okay, we can't replace Jason Giambi and Johnny Damon and whoever else it was, but we can replace their stats in the aggregate, meaning 2 or 3 players, probably 2, that can replace closely Marner's 102 points. Remember, that was a career year. You're talking about a guy who was a consistent 90-point player.
Yeah.
And I think they did in part with Maselli. Or Michelli, however it's pronounced. We'll find out the correct pronunciation. I'll say Maselli right now. He was on the all-rookie team 3 years ago. 2 years ago, he had 40 assists. Last year, he had a bad year, and I did a little studying on him, and it was like, they couldn't find a good combo with him on the on the first line, on the second line, on the third line. Then they started healthy scratching him. It was just when the team moved from Arizona to Utah, he seemed to he left his mojo in Scottsdale. So,
But now he's going to get some back with a person from Scottsdale.
Well, the funny thing was one of his line mates was Josh Doan. Shane Doan. So
Okay,
I
yeah.
have a feeling Shane Doan had something to do,
Yeah, I heard that too.
yeah. And down Josh Doan is in Buffalo. But yeah, so I mean, I think it's like a free swing. I think it's a good move because he's a talented kid. I know my buddy Russ Cohen on the Off the Post podcast is like ripping into me because he only had 4% defensive zone starts. I'm like, they're not getting him to be a shutdown guy. He's an offensive guy. I can see him playing on the left side with Tavares and Nylander.
Isn't he still pretty young though, too?
24.
Yeah, that's young.
So that is that's our next question. Like, do you think this kid is this Machelli? Is he a top 6 forward? Do you think?
I think they'll give him an opportunity to be a top 6 forward.
Even though he's rather small in stature, Craig Berube will, you think, give him that opportunity? That's the other thing I worry about when we get.
Well, how small is he? Is he small? Is he 5'11"? So he's about the same size as Mitch.
Right.
I mean, I know they say Mitch is like 6 foot, but really, he's not that much smaller. And if he's got the similar skill set where he bounces off checks and stuff, he probably could play up there.
He's a good playmaker. I mean, I don't know about his speed. I mean, honestly, I've maybe watched him. I mean, I know I watched him when Utah came to Buffalo. So, but I mean, like I said, I think it's a good risk to take. I mean, it's weird.
Right now we don't have much for scoring, so we gotta take some risk. I mean, it's still July 1st right now, so Brad Treliving has some time, right? So,
and he said as much in his comments to the media. Basically, is like, yeah, he's keeping his powder dry because if you look at some of the contracts that were signed out there, I mean, Brock Besser stayed in Vancouver because they were the only team probably that offered him a 7-year deal. Everybody was, apparently the rumors out there was there were teams out there that were willing to pay him 8, but they were not willing to go 7 years. They were willing to go 5 years or 4 years. So he went back home to Vancouver and got the long-term deal. We saw what Marchand got. That was just
that's just insane.
And the Leafs are lucky that they didn't need a defenseman because the prices for blue liners were ridiculous. I mean, Evan Bouchard getting $10.5 million, Provorov getting $8.5 million on a 7-year deal. I mean, the Leafs are very lucky that they have their blue line locked up for multiple years. So, I think they're in. I think they're in a decent position. They have, I believe, around $10 million in cap space. I think that they could go after. I think the guy who is maybe one of their targets is Andrew Mangiapane, who played for Treliving in Calgary and scored 35 goals a few years ago. But he scored that on that ridiculous Calgary team that had Tkachuk and Lindholm and the team that went up against Edmonton and lost. I mean, they were really talented and had a great year, and he had a career year that year, and he got a contract off of that. But he, sort of dropped off and then got traded to Washington. And he's from Toronto, so I have a feeling they're going to try to go after him. But if they don't get him, then I think there's probably, they're probably going to work on some sort of trade.
Yeah, but do you think, again, he's rather on the, obviously they have a link with Treliving from Calgary, but with Mangiapane, but again, it's a rather smallish forward. So you would, Craig Berube and Brad Treliving hopefully are on the same page that way when it comes to size in the lineup, right? Like if nobody else is available, I guess that's what you got to do. But what I was thinking, Jordan Kyrou has anything, I've heard his name too. No?
But that's not a very good history with Berube. I think that's part of the reason why he ended up leaving.
Yeah, it's not a very good history with Berube, and that would cost you probably Easton Cowan and something else. And I don't think the Leafs want to pay that price for a guy like, and Kyrou's a talented player, but I don't think that makes a lot of sense. If there was, if Brian Rust was available, and I know he is available from Pittsburgh. Now he's 33.
Isn't everybody available?
Yes.
except for 87.
Well, some people say he might be available too.
I mean,
much to his chagrin, maybe.
Either Brian Rust or Rickard Raquel, and Raquel can play center, but he's played mostly wing. I mean, if they want to go that direction, and both of those players are locked up for multiple years at, I think, around $5.5 million, that might be a direction they want to go if they can't get Mangiapane. Because I look at the free agent pool right now, and there's not much. There's not much left. Nobody that can fill the gap for Marner. I mean, if Patrick Kane hadn't re-signed in Detroit, I thought that might have been a possibility. But I think he likes it in Detroit, and he's just going to stay there for the rest of his career. But I mean, in the end, they had to move on from Marner. Marner decided he wanted to move on, so they got sort of forced into changing the DNA. And if you look at what Treliving said at the media availability today, he basically said, we tried to talk to him and he didn't want to talk, and he didn't, I think he made his mind to move on, and that was his right. But don't expect people to all of a sudden give you a standing ovation when they show your video at the Scotiabank Arena next year when Vegas comes to town. I think he's going to get booed more than Tavares got booed in Long Island. I think
I haven't seen any Marner burning jerseys videos yet, though.
No.
Maybe it's just because, I don't know, Leafs Nation is a little kinder. Maybe, I don't know, but
they cost too much. Just get
that's it. Yeah.
Maybe
the razor blade out, cut the 16 and cut the Marner off, and put somebody else's name on there.
Maybe they'll throw the 16 jersey on the ice, right?
On the ice,
they'll just sew Tucker over 16. There you go.
That would be actually hilarious.
That would be good. Yeah.
Especially if you do it like kind of like askew, kind of like really make it obvious that it's sort of like not in line 100%.
No, I mean, really all you have to really do is get the 4 letters Tuck, because the ER.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
That's true. Yeah.
You can save yourself a few cents.
Yeah, there you go.
But one other thing when it comes to the lineup here with David Kampf and Calle Jarnkrok. Have you heard?
I think they're trying to trade them is what I heard.
Yeah. But nobody wants them apparently. Is that what you've heard as well?
I would not have a problem keeping Calle Jarnkrok. It's the final year of his deal. He's at $2.1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Urube used him in the playoffs as a 4th line guy. I think he can bounce back a little bit coming off the injury that he had he missed more than half the year.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's salvageable. There's no place on the team for David Kampf. I'd continue to say either Pittsburgh or New Jersey with Sheldon Keefe. Maybe after free. We know that New Jersey signed Connor Brown, so there's a connection between Keefe and I'm pretty sure Brown played for the Marlies when Keefe was there. And he was in the organization, so he knows the quality of the player. And I like Connor Brown. I think he's a good kid. But if they need, I believe they didn't re-sign Cody Glass, so they need depth at center, and they always need depth at center because Jack Hughes can't stay healthy. But David Kampf makes sense. You're not going to get much for him. I mean, Buffalo got a 6th round pick for Sam Lafferty. So it's probably going to be something like that. You're not going to get much in return. You're going to get the cap relief. And I think that would be enough for them. There's that. And I'm telling Ryan Reeves to get a cushion for the bus going to Utica.
Well, is it like they signed the guy from Montreal, right? Yeah. So sort of he's the same sort of player, right?
Well, I mean, okay, he's a big guy.
I mean, he did fight Reeves.
Yes, he's younger. He can keep up with the pace. He's an energy guy. I don't think he's making the Leafs. I think he's Marley material. But I think the fact that he got a 2-year deal, and I'm pretty sure it's a one-way deal, makes him waiverable, meaning that other teams won't claim him. Now, maybe they keep him as a 13th forward because he's cheap. but I don't think he's going to be a guy in the lineup every day. You put him in against Florida to drive people crazy. I mean, I remember him playing for Montreal, and he's just incessant. He just, is an Energizer bunny, and he's all over the place. And he's a kid from Toronto, so it probably made his day to re-sign with the Leafs. But do I think he's like, oh, he's going to be fourth line? No, I mean, I think your fourth line right now, you've got 2/3 of your fourth line right now. You got Steven Lorenz, who they re-signed on a 3-year deal, and you've got Scott Lott. So maybe you need that fourth line right winger. I don't know if somebody like Nick Robertson fits into that, but I've continued to say Nick Robertson is a top 6 talent in terms of skill who fits in as a bottom 6 guy because of his size. So I don't know if he's ever going to get that top 6 chance with the Leafs, but we'll see.
So, all right. So the other question I had actually was about Nick Robertson. So you think that they've done a qualifying offer to him, right? And then, but they didn't qualify Pontus Holmberg, and Pontus Holmberg is now part of Tampa Bay.
I was sort of puzzled by that. I mean, it sounded to me because in watching Treliving's availability that they didn't qualify him because then he would be eligible for arbitration, and they wanted to get him on a deal before he went to unrestricted free agency after not qualifying him, and he wasn't amenable to that. So he wanted to go to arbitration, and he didn't put up great offensive numbers, but he probably would have received close to what he got from Tampa Bay, which was $1.5 million or $1.55 million. I liked Pontus Holmberg. He was a versatile guy who could play up and down the lineup. He, hustled. He played special teams.
Burbe liked him too.
That's why
he even had him playing on the top line once with Austin Matthews. So
right, and he absorbed a lot of punishment. I mean, in that Florida series, he got buried a couple times by Kachuk and Bennett, and maybe Berube, didn't want a guy who was getting on the receiving end of the stuff. He wanted a guy who was,
dishing it out,
pushing out. So, I mean, but the guys who I sort of penciled in as players that the Leafs would go after, Tanner Jeannot got a 5-year deal from Boston. It was absolutely obscene. I mean, $3.4 million for 5 years for a guy who I don't think he had 10 goals last year. I mean, I like Jeannot in terms of being a physical force, and he fits perfectly with the Bruins, but I don't know, man. That deal was ridiculous. And then Brandon Tanev got 3 years with Utah. I'm surprised I'm still surprised that the Leafs didn't sign him, especially for $2.5 million. I thought that was a price range. I hit it. I said he's going to get $2.5 million for 3 years. I just got the team wrong. I thought it was going to be Toronto, and it ended up being Utah.
Maybe his brother didn't want him to be on the team.
I don't know. Sibling rivalry is what we're saying here.
He said that he thought at the end presser when they asked him about it, he said he thought they might fight too much in the dressing room.
Oh boy.
So how do you think this is going to affect Austin Matthews? That's one thing I was looking on his Instagram today on social media, and he just reposted the thank you Mitch thing that the Maple Leafs put out. But I don't know, because they were basically, obviously they were best buds.
Yeah.
And they were always, during warm-ups, they're always the last two off the ice. They're very close, obviously, and they'll still be friends. But when it comes to the game, like, I just hope that he's able to come back from whatever injury he had, as he's going to have to basically score the 50 goals again. Like, we need 50 to 60 goals again from him. He needs to pick up the weight a little bit here and not have it like the Sundin era where we're looking for a winger to play with Austin Matthews, right? Instead of with Matt Sundin. Like, that's what we were always complaining about with Sundin. He couldn't find a winger to play with him.
Freddie Modine, Michael Renberg, Jonas Hoagland, or as I call him, Honus Jogland. And then finally they got something right when they got Alex McGillney, who's thankfully
Yes.
now a Hall of Famer. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think it's good that they signed Knies, and there's a chemistry between Knies and Matthews. So now obviously Marner is a premier playmaker, and he set up Matthews for probably 80% of his goals. If he wasn't playing with Nylander, he was playing with Matthews. I don't think the answer here is to move Nylander up to the top line, because then all your eggs are in one basket. I think you have to keep them on separate lines. I think it should be Tavares and Nylander and Knies and Matthews, and then it's who you plug in on the right side on that first line, or maybe that you consider that the second line, whatever. I think any line that Matthews is on is the first line. And you're right. The big thing here is make sure that he's healthy. I was under the impression that he was going to have surgery for whatever was ailing him, but apparently it's something he says that with time it'll heal. I have to take him at his word. We don't know what it is, but if he doesn't play up to expectations, and then we're saying he's nursing an injury next season, then people are going to get a little perturbed. But yes, it's massively important for Matthews to return to Matthews pre-injury and being a 50 to 60 goal scorer, especially now with Marner gone. But Marner made it possible, or at least he helped it along, being the playmaker that he is. I mean, do they plug Max Domi in that position? Max Domi has played well with Matthews before and is a good playmaker. Not as good as Marner, but he is a good playmaker. So is that the home for Max Domi? Because the home for Max Domi cannot be third line center. He is a brutal third line center.
Mm-hmm.
Do they give Bobby McMahon a chance? Do they give Nick Robertson a chance? Do they give Easton Cowan a chance? These are all things that'll get determined over the next few weeks. They're, according to Treliving, they're going to probably re-sign, or at least they're open to re-signing Max Pacioretty, but I don't think he can be depended on to be an 82-game player. But it's nice to have a guy who can perform in the playoffs, perform when it counts. But the one thing here that Treliving said is, we're not in any rush to spend our cap space. We're going to see how the summer evolves. And that's a good, I would have rather done that than reflexively go out and spend stupid money on a contract that they regret. They kept their powder dry, and now they can see the landscape of the next month or so and see what they can add. And I think that's a prudent way to go.
Well, that pretty much answers the next question we were going to ask, which is, where do they go from here? As we're talking, there's really nothing much left out there in the form of other high scoring free agent wingers available, other than maybe Nick Ehlers, who purportedly does not want to come to Toronto. And I can understand that. He's been in Winnipeg all this time. I think he does not want to be in another Canadian market if he can help it. So
he's been in Winnipeg a long time, and he is countryman, and I'm assuming friends with Freddie Anderson. So do you think he wants to come to Toronto?
I think he's probably a good fit though too. If for Carolina,
yes,
seems like that would be a good spot for him anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I agree with you that that's probably what they're going to do. They're going to kind of wait a little bit, see what else is available, and maybe make some deals via trade. And we were talking before, even before the free agency and everything, that, we really felt like maybe it's not till the trade deadline that they kind of do something to really, boost their team coming into the playoffs.
Well, it will make training camp interesting. You could see, a couple training camp invites, taking chances on players. I'd have to scour the, who is available right now and the free, go to Puckpedia or Cap Wages or any of the multiple websites that are out there and see, what unrestricted free agents are still out there. The Leafs, obviously they cannot do offer sheets, even though they have the cap space because they don't have their own draft picks. So that's not something. But if there is a player out there that is a restricted free agent that a team can't sign, then, maybe the Leafs can arrange some sort of deal. But, then you're talking about trading either Cowan or that Ben Danford or your first round pick in 2028. It's like, how far can you go to trade your first round picks? And eventually you got to start rebuilding, within the organization. You cannot keep Florida is evidence to the contrary because, they drafted the Barkov and Lundell and a few other players, but they assembled their team mostly through free agency and trades. So it is possible, but I think when you have high priced players like the Leafs do, you have to supplement that with players within your organization.
Yeah. And they also did it with the Florida state tax or no tax.
Well, yeah, I continue.
But that's not anything though, Chris.
But
Come
actually,
on.
Though, I was listening. Nick Caprio said it today. It made sense. The play, like if you look at Ekblad taking $6 million AAV that he took, and
Marchand
the other
5.
Yeah, and $8 million for Bennett, but all those players could have gotten $2 million more, let's just say, on the open market. And he said, I haven't had time to go and look, but he said when you go on Puckpedia or any of those sites, that Florida's total salary cap, like with all the players, is like 25% lower than what everybody else has to pay. You look at that as the salary cap goes up. It's going to get worse, that number. Because, and as long as they keep winning, obviously, which I think personally Florida has, like, with the way they play, maybe like one more, I'm thinking, if they win another cup.
Well,
but there's no way that they can, look at Alex Pietrangelo. He can't even get out. Like, he might have to retire now. He only won the one Stanley Cup, but I guess with the way Vegas played, that heavy style, right? He's might not be able to play again.
Well, the issue with Florida is it's not with any of the players other than Marchand that they've signed. It's Bobrovsky, who's 37.
Yeah, that's the other key.
If he drops off, they have no answer in goal unless Daniel Tarasov turns into a Donovan Hasek. So that's the one chink in their armor. Now, Bobrovsky is a great goalie right now, but you can drop off pretty quick. So that's the thing that they have to be concerned with. But in terms of the Leafs, I think that barring a big trade, it's going to be an interesting training camp because you'll see training camp invites. You'll see them giving Easton Cowan a legitimate chance to make the team. And Easton Cowan is a excellent playmaker. If you look at his stats in London, he's a good, really good setup man. He can score goals, but I think he's more sort of Marner light. I don't want to say this kid has got to replace Mitch Marner. I think that's unfair to him. But and there again, I have to look at the free agent list, but you could do much worse if you're a free agent and say, I can plug in and be on the right side with Austin Matthews for a year and say, okay, I can put up a big number and then go free agent and make big money. And I think the Leafs would sign up for that. If Jeff Skinner was a right winger instead of a left winger, Jeff Skinner's from Toronto. He signed in Buffalo because he wanted to be close to his family in Toronto. If he doesn't get signed, and I don't know if Jeff Skinner's over the hill. He didn't have a very good year with Edmonton. But what I'm saying is a player like that, a player with skill, might roll the dice and say, okay, I'll take a 1-year deal with Toronto and see if I can put up big numbers. And playing with Matthew Knies and Austin Matthews isn't a bad gig.
No.
And what do you say to these fans? Some fans that I've been talking to, they're just saying like the Leafs are going to be garbage next year. They're not going to make the playoffs. Do you think they're going to be that bad?
It's funny because I have a lot of, and don't ask me why, but I used to record the phone calls that I made to Leaf Talk back in the day. I've got about 100 of them where, I just I recorded them and I have them on my computer. And I was listening to one of them a couple days ago, and it was, like 4 or 5 callers in a row were talking about something stupid with the Leafs, and they were just reacting emotionally. Oh my God. And I came on the air and Andy Frost laughed at what I said, and I'll say it now. There are some Leaf fans who are morons. And the ones who are saying that this team won't make the playoffs are morons. Now, if Austin Matthews gets hurt, you have less of a safety net right now because Marner is gone. You still have Nylander, who's one of the best scoring wingers in the league. You still have one of the 5 best centers in the NHL. I think you have a very good defense. Your goaltending is solid. You need to add up front, and I think they can do that, and they have cap space. They're a playoff team. They may not be as good as they were when they had Mitch Marner, but we know the flaws of this team. We know what they were last year. Great. They were fantastic in the regular season. The last time I looked, you don't win the Stanley Cup in April. You win it in June.
Yep.
They haven't seen June. They haven't seen June ever, because the Stanley Cup in 1967 was awarded, I believe, on May the 2nd. So they've never played hockey in the month of June, ever. And you want to know what the closest they got to playing in June? It was Game 7 in 1993.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. Yep. I think it was May 29th.
It was very traumatic,
I think it was May 29th.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, it was.
Okay, one more question about the Leafs, and then we're going to ask you one other question not related to Leafs. But who do you think should get the A from since Marner is?
Is it going to be your buddy Willie Stiles?
No.
No?
No.
Why not?
I would give it to him.
I just don't think he's a leader. He's a great.
Yeah, but that might add
I don't know.
Don't you think that could change? Although, do you want to change the way he you don't. You want him free Willy.
Yeah, free Willy. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I am assuming right now that your obviously your captain is Matthews, Tavares, and I know that they've rotated the.
Yeah, so actually they don't have to rotate now.
Right.
Because they had to give Mitch an A, so that he didn't, could feel important and all that, right?
Yeah.
So if they don't have to do that anymore.
Right. If you're going with the traditional 2 A's and 1 C, then it's Tavares and Riley and Matthews. If you wanted to give out a 3rd A, I would be in favor of giving it to either Jake McCabe or Chris Tanev. I would not give it to, not because, not anything against Nylander. He just doesn't strike me as a leader. So and it's too early for Matthew Knies. He's a kid. He's 22.
Yeah, no.
That would be like giving the captaincy to Matthews when they gave it to Tavares. He's not ready for it. But I would give it to a veteran guy who's respected in the room, and we know Tanev and McCabe are respected in the room.
All right. Okay. All right. I just thought Nylander. I mean, he brings it in the playoffs, obviously, and he's a good regular season. It's not as noticeable. Let's just say he does drop offs, but
we don't want to burden.
But then,
we don't want to burden Dr. Nylander or Mr. Philly, whoever he is that particular day, with the weight of leadership.
True. Yeah. All right. And then the last question that we have for today, not related to Leafs, but were you surprised at any other UFA signing today from the other teams? Like, was there anything that really stood out to you, shocked you, whether it be good or bad? Or
well, the Tanner Jeannot deal was ridiculous. I mean, like I said, I had a list of 3 sort of players that I thought that the Leafs would sign one of them, and one was Jeannot, one was Brandon Tanev, and the other was Mangiapane. And of the 3, Mangiapane still hasn't signed. Jeannot was a 5-year deal for $3.4 million. I thought that was way overboard. But there were a lot. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, the prices on defensemen are obscene. Evan Bouchard $10.5 million for 4 years for a guy who is a disaster in his own zone.
Like how about 20 million on the back end there?
Yeah.
For just two guys.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. The Oilers are going to be like the way Kyle Dubas built the Leafs with their core players, right?
Well,
Getting
I was going to say, it would be one thing if it was $20 million and the two defensemen were Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook. They're Evan the Pylon Bouchard, and Darnell Nurse, who used to be a good defenseman, but now is nowhere close to being $9.5 million with the defense. But the prices for blue liners, I mean, Kevin Ball in Carolina, he wasn't a UFA. He was a re-sign for Calgary. $5.5 million for Kevin Ball. I mean, Martin Ferravari gets $6 million. I'm glad that the Leafs have all their defensemen locked up on the contracts that they do. I mean, if you look how economical McCabe's deal is, Tanev's deal is, Ekman Larsson's, Benoit's, and I don't, all these.
They might not be 10 million altogether. Those guys.
And all these idiots who want the Leafs to force Morgan Riley to waive his no move clause. He's making $7.5 million. He's making $3 million less than Evan Bouchard. And other than the fact that Evan Bouchard has got a howitzer for a slap shot, I'm sorry, and people will make fun of me for saying this. I think Morgan Riley's a better defenseman than Evan Bouchard. So, all the and Brandon Carlo is under 4. So all their defense are on reasonable contracts, and the Leafs were lucky that they didn't need a defenseman in this free agent pool because Vladislav Gavrikov gets $7 million.
I know. Wow. Yeah, I know.
Provorov gets $8.5 million with Columbus. I mean, obscene, absolutely obscene.
Yeah. Well, I guess we were pretty fortunate. We dodged a bullet there.
Yeah. And we're good but between the pipes, too, with the goaltending. So,
we'll have to. But if you don't listen to Marty Baron on TSN, who is advocating they trade Joseph Wall, it's like, okay. And then who's your number one goaltender? Because we know Anthony Stolarz is going to break down after 25 games.
Yeah. I mean, that's well. We hope not, but that's the thing. Both of them, yeah.
I hope not too, but I mean, I'm just looking at history. The guy has had more knee surgeries than I've had Big Macs in the last year.
Oh my God! Yeah. We'll get into that. We'll have to get into the goaltending more next show too, because when we have you on the next time, because it's I don't know. I just think that the Leafs don't have a lot of assets to make a trade because because basically of the previous regime with Kyle Dubas trading all first round picks for God knows how long.
Yeah.
Right. And
by the way, did you happen to notice that Kyle Dubas in Pittsburgh, essentially drafted the entire Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds roster? I think they drafted 3 guys from the Sioux. It's like, hey Kyle, I love you. You're a good guy and and everything, but there are other teams in the OHL.
Yeah, and didn't he send the Sabres Connor Timmins? He did.
Yes. Well, Ben, I mean, this isn't Sabre talk, but I'll just say this: I have never seen a more fiscally responsible team than the Buffalo Sabres. They had to sign some free agents. They had to sign Ryan McLeod, and they gave Ryan McLeod $5 million a year after having a 20-goal season. But what they did was they traded J.J. Peterka because he wanted to actually get paid. They traded Connor Clifton to Pittsburgh, who was making $3.3 million, and got back Connor Timmins, who's making $1.1. And he's an RFA, so they'll end up signing him for around what he made last year. And then they traded former Leaf Sam Lafferty back to Chicago for nothing, for a 6th-round pick, and they dumped $2 million in salary. So the money that they ended up paying to Ryan McLeod, they cleared out in other. So it's just reshuffling deck chairs on the Titanic. It's just an absolute unmitigated disaster.
Yeah, I'm actually starting to feel sorry for the Sabres fans.
Feel
Yeah.
sorry for me. Feel
Never
sorry
thought
for
I'd
me.
say that, feeling sorry for Sabre fans, but yeah.
Feel sorry for me. I have Sabre fans who are friends of mine, and they bitch and complain to me about, "Oh, why are the Sabres so bad?" Well, look
Yeah.
what they do.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we thank you once again, Mike, for being our guest. And of course, it is never a dull moment when we're talking with you and we are talking Leafs, even when we're talking Buffalo. Anyway, hockey fans, be sure to check out hockeyhotstove.com. You can hear more of Mike's Leaf views on the Leaf Convo podcast as well. He's also a host of Off the Post Radio covering the NHL, and you can find both shows on hockeyhotstove.com and YouTube. If you don't follow Mike on X, make sure that you do. He's at Mike in Buffalo, and that's his handle, sorry. And he's also on Hockey Hot Stove, which is at Hockey H Stove. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Always.
And happy Independence Day coming up for you.
Yes.
Happy Canada Day. It's like, I mean, I know all the reporters were just so anxious to get off the air and head to their cabins or head on vacation because they're tired of talking about hockey. And I never get tired, so I'll talk about hockey anytime.
And we're going to be talking about it on the patio all summer long. All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks again to Mike for coming on the show. I mean, as always, Mike, we just went to town with all kinds of different things, kind of went off script and he just answered all our questions. But the one thing I thought was interesting when he was talking about Austin Matthews and just the way I was saying how he has to pull his weight a little bit more and hopefully be healthy. And like he mentioned, Max Domi being possibly going back on the right side with Matthews.
That's the first thing I would try.
Yeah.
He's done it. They've done it before. They've had decent chemistry. They might have more incentive to make it work even that much more because the fallback is no longer with us. And so now also Matthews can't fall back on that either. He can't say, yeah, but I really want to play with my buddy. Can you just put me back with them? He can't do that anymore. So like you said, he's going to have to pull his weight. And that's a big part of it is basically driving the line a lot more on his own without, having a sidekick there.
Yeah. And also the other thing that was with actually, Mike was kind of positive because I have had a lot of negative comments about the Leafs, like now that Marner and everything is gone. Like a lot of the fans are saying well, not a lot. I would say I've been reading 50-50. Half of them are saying good riddance. And the other ones are saying, where are you going to replace the 190 to 100 points, right? So there's like 50-50 of it. And Mike's comments, though, he seems to be a bit more on the positive side anyways for the team overall, like to say that we're not going to be like horrible. And I don't think we're going to be horrible either, like personally. Like
honestly, like for me, in my mind, I've just moved on from it. And I'm not thinking of any of those things. And, it's whoever we have is who we have. And that's the team is who I cheer for. And I'm just...
Yeah. I think we're all ready to move on from just talking about it all the time. And
100%.
Just like Mitch was, I guess. The only thing that I just don't like with Marner is the fact that he had his foot out the door for like the whole season. That does bother me. But I mean, now it's over, so see you later.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier his send off. Farewell, on Instagram or whatever, that kind of pissed me off a little bit. That left me with a sour taste because literally in that note, he basically said all the things that we've wanted to hear from him after every playoff exit. And he could just never bring himself to say it at that time. But now that he's, mentally left and moving on and all of that, now he says it all. I don't know. That left a bad taste in my mouth, really.
Yeah, somebody said it was something to do with ChatGPT.
Yeah. I mean, you could say, these are the points I want to cover. Make it sound like I'm really, really sad to go and da-da. Who knows?
Maybe. Who knows? But anyways, we're moving on. It's going to be different in September.
for sure.
Like, definitely. Like, it's going to be different, and it's going to be different during the warm-ups and stuff like that. But
hey,
it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a different type of vibe, let's say.
For sure. And it all starts with the guys that they did just sign. John Tavares, Matthew Knies, even Steven Lorentz.
Yeah.
All to a man, they all talked about how excited they are to wear this jersey. The team, it's team first. They all get it. And those are the types of guys that we need to build around. And those are typically the guys that, you know, for generations, those types of players are the players that are loved here. So, you know, yes, 100 points. Are we going to miss that? But I would rather have a guy that's going to give me, you know, maybe 70, but bleed blue like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, those teams that we watched in like the 93 team, we didn't have like, except for Dougie.
Yeah, Dougie.
Right. But that's our Austin Matthews. That's what he needs to do. He needs to carry this team, maybe not quite as much as the way Dougie did it, but it's a different
it's like
game
him
now.
And like Andrechuk, who scored all the goals. That's Willie. You know, and then you had a whole bunch of other guys, and including Wendell, who, you know, he's Matthew Knies, or Matthew Knies could be him. So, you know, those are, and then they had a whole bunch of other guys that just, you know, would go through a brick wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So now we have a bit of a programming note. We are in full summer mode and going to be heading to the patio soon. So now our next episode will be August 6th. So until then, if there's any other big Leaf news that comes up, we will definitely be having a bonus show in the meantime. To note, the Leafs development camp is coming up this week. The Leafs haven't announced the exact dates, but they have announced the camp roster, and you'll find this information. We'll have it for you in our show notes. Development camp, of course, is a chance for us to find out more about the 2025 players who are drafted by the Leafs this past week, and the players that we haven't really seen yet with the big club that have been drafted in the past few years as well. So we might see like Danford. And of course, this is going to be our first chance to see Easton Cowan again. You know, hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of him this year.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see how this development camp is with all the new players and then the last couple of years from the few draft picks that we have. So, but we need that internal growth. We need to get some of these young guys, at least one in our lineup for this season. So, but the easiest way to keep up on all this news and all the Leaf news all year long is to hit that follow button on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to our podcast, and we'll have you up to date on the Leafs throughout the year. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, and you can also find us on the Believe network at believe.com. It's BLEAV.com. And we also love to hear from you. Be sure to leave us a rating or review. Feedback from our listeners is so important, and we thank you for taking the time. And just a reminder for those listeners on Spotify, we do have a poll question for every show, and with a simple tap, your little finger, you just need to do a little tap. Let us know what you think of the show. I'm not going to give up.
Okay.
Can you tell who does the question?
Okay. Also, don't forget to look out for us on the new hockey content website, hockeyhotstove.com. And another way to help us out is by visiting our Ko-fi page at kofi.com as well. You can follow us there, and if you choose to, you can support us by buying us a coffee. Any donation goes towards helping us produce the show and making it even better for you. You can find the link to our Ko-fi page on our show notes or in any of our social media profile pages.
And as always, thank you to our healthcare workers and first responders for all that they do.
And we thank you, as always, for listening and watching Ladies Talkin Leafs. Till next time, go Leafs, go.
Do you believe?